Hey guys, it's Elena. So it's December now, and it has been for about a week, so let's go ahead with this month's Create with Intuition digital art prompts. So the intuitive prompt is the word should. This word brings up a lot of things for a lot of people, especially in December. There is a lot going on with all the holidays for most people. There's family, there are presents, there are things to prepare, and there's a whole lot of should happening in December. So I wanted to explore what kind of feelings does that bring up? What should you be doing right now? What should you have done yesterday? Who says that you should? Do you think that you should? For this month's visual prompt, I've chosen contrast, and that could be anything from contrasting colors to contrasting textures or objects, and anything where one thing is not like another. And I've provided a photo album on Unsplash to help you kind of understand what I mean by contrast and maybe give you some prompts to help you get started visually. So with that said, let's go ahead and dive into my version of these prompts, and yours might be completely different, but I just kind of wanted to take you along with my thinking and show you how I've interpreted the prompts this month. So I'm opening up my Create with Intuition journal, and I've have Page Assist on this document so that I can have each of my months in here. So I've added a new page, and this will probably turn into a group of layers in a little while, but I'm just going to start out with one initial layer, and I'm swiping up from the bottom to bring my Unsplash app over to the right side, and I've opened up the photo album that I'm providing. So I'm just kind of scrolling through these images, trying to think about the intuitive prompt and how I want to interpret that with this concept of contrast. So I'm thinking about what I should be doing, which is of course all the December things, and what I want to be doing, which is probably sitting on the couch watching TV. So this image here was really speaking to me with the contrast of the brick wall and the white wall. So I chose that, and I decided I wanted to use my Painterly brush set. So I'm selecting my Swirly Impressionist brush, and I wanted to drag this image over to my color palettes in order to grab those colors. So I'm just dragging it over from gallery view, and then those colors populate over there so that I can be roughly inspired by the colors as well as the visual concept of this image. So I wanted to start out on the left side, and I'm choosing two different colors because this is a dual color brush. So I'm choosing a greenish blue and a beigey color. And this particular brush, the secondary color comes out when you take the brush over to the side. So I'm just kind of scribbling over here on the left side and then taking the brush to a tilt to get some of that blue in there. So I'm just kind of roughly smudging around with this brush in order to have a background, and I wanted to just kind of put in a lot of texture. So it's not a brick wall. Selecting my palette knife brush there and the same greenish color, I'm just going to add some texture. So how I wanted to be inspired by this is that I just wanted to have a lot of texture on the left side and very little texture or color on the right side. And I apologize that this is going a bit fast. I needed to speed it up a bit because my hand was kind of in the way for a lot of this filming. So I kind of covered it with a lot of brush marks in blue, and now I'm doing the same in light blue. And this is all with the palette knife brush. And I've now selected my soft streaky palette knife, which blends a little bit more than the regular palette knife brush, and it's just more streaky. So I'm doing the same thing, just kind of roughing up the texture, playing with texture, and just scribbling around really with the light blue and the dark blue. So now I'm going with this almost off-white color, and I've still got the streaky soft palette knife selected, and I'm just continuing to rough up the texture. This is something I really like to do. And now I've selected my super dry brush, and I'm just going to continue roughing up the edges of this blue blob texture. And I realized that this is kind of a process that I do a lot. I start out with something in the background, I will add brush strokes and then progressively get rougher and rougher brushes to add more and more texture as I'm building it up. So at this point, I realized that I wanted to have a sharper contrast between the left and the right side. So I went to my eraser and I chose the soft airbrushing brush under the eraser, and I'm just getting rid of some of that extra so that we've got more of a clean line over here on the left. So going back to my brush tool, I decided to select my soft pointed palette knife, and this one blends quite a bit as well. So I went with a brown color, and I wanted to have the brown as kind of a accent color over here on the left. So I'm just kind of adding some streaky lines with the pointed soft palette knife. And I wanted to have some up and down lines as well, some vertical lines. So I'm just kind of playing with that concept, and I decided that was enough brown and went with the off-white color again. And I'm continuing these same motions on top of this. So I wanted the brown to only be in this one area, and then I wanted to take that same concept of the crisscrossing pointed palette knife lines to a couple different areas of the piece as well, but not with the brown. So at this point, I decided to start creating that contrast between left and right. So I went back to my Painterly brushes and chose my detail brush. And then I chose one of the black colors from the color palette. And I wanted to trace along this line, kind of like the photo on the right, but a little bit more contrasting. So at this point, I kind of decided to add a lot of little squiggly lines coming along, and just kind of erased what my hand did there, and just kind of adding a lot of little squiggly lines on top of each other to create this separation between the left and the right. So now, in order to have a little bit of texture only on the right side, I went to the selection tool, which is the ribbon tool, and went to automatic, and then tapping on that white space, I can slide left and right to change the threshold at the top. And so I selected a threshold that seemed right and then added a new layer, and that selection is still active. So I tapped the layer and tapped mask. So now that layer is masked to that spot. So it's kind of like having a cutout of paper that you're only going to be able to paint in the area that's cut out. And so now I'm renaming that bottom layer where I've been painting as the left side paint layer. And I'll go ahead and name the masked layer, which is currently named layer 9. I'm just going to tap that and rename it right side texture. And so now that that is selected, I'm also selecting the left side paint and then tapping group. So now that is a group, and it shows up as one page in our page assist. So I'm renaming that whole group as December 2022. And so now that kind of shows up like we're building a little notebook here. So you can see the different pages by tapping on them, and they're all groups of layers. So I kind of wanted to keep building this as a notebook. So now that we have this layer, this right side masked, I went to select that layer, and I have black in my color palette still. And I'm going up to canvas and texture, which is also something that comes in my Painterly brush set. So I chose primed canvas number 1, and with black selected, I'm just going to add a canvas texture over here on the right. So it kind of looks like a white canvas that has been painted on with white paint. So it's very subtle. It's hard to see in the video. So I just kind of zoomed in for a minute to have a look at how it looks. And I noticed that we have kind of a little triangle in the middle. And I thought it would be interesting to do the same thing. So I went to that layer and I'm selecting it again on automatic and sliding until I'm happy with the threshold. So now we have a new selection of this little triangle. So I'm adding a new layer and then tapping that layer and tapping mask on that layer. And this is within the same group because I added the layer inside of the group. So on that layer, I wanted to have something completely different. I thought about having a green color in here, but none of these were actually as bright as I wanted. So I chose a green color from the palette, and I just went to the value tab and started to kind of play around with all the different sliders. And this is something that I do a lot. If I'm not quite happy with a color that comes from a photo, I'll just kind of tweak until I'm happy with how it's coming out. So after much tweaking, I came up with this bright green color, and I chose my Swirly Impressionist texture from the Painterly brush set and just added that right in there so that it's peeking out and enhancing this concept of contrast. So that is what I came up with using these prompts. I wouldn't call it some kind of amazing fine art, but I found it a very healing exercise during this busy month to take a moment to just slow down and think about all of the things that I should be doing, but what do I really want to be doing? And just use this as a way to kind of process everything and make sure that I am getting what I want out of this month. So I hope that this was helpful for you as well, and I would love to see what you come up with if you feel like sharing, and I will see you next time.